Hello honeys, I've collected all 49 premium rare dresses featured in the Aikatsu anime and I put them all together for you. Enjoy! 49. Clara Carol. So these rankings have nothing to do with the brands they're attached to, they're purely based on my taste. That said, Clara Carol has nothing to offer me. I don't like the color palette or the droopy cut of the skirt. Maybe I'm being a little harsh because it's a Christmas themed coord, but I don't feel bad putting it at the bottom. 48. Soul Marionette. Soul Marionette is not much better. The strappy belt and harness motif is not one of my favorites, and I especially dislike its pairing with the rainbow chain print. The silhouette and asymmetry are at least interesting though, and I don't mind the chaotic mix of textures since they're united by a monochromatic color palette. The LED accessories are also pretty cool. 47. Unicorn Sagittarius. I'd like to point out that Unicorn Sagittarius should be named Pegasus Sagittarius instead, since that make the feathers make a little more sense. As it is though, this is a pretty unpopular coord. I defended the mix of shapes and textures in my magical toy ranking, but there are a ton of issues with this design. The fact that the color palette of the shoes doesn't even match the wings is the biggest red flag. 46. Marble Candy. Marble Candy is only so far down because I unfortunately don't like food themes very much, and I also don't like the use of 2D graphic prints in Aikatsu where you could easily use 3D elements instead. I do think the blouse and shoes are really cute and I like this color scheme. It's just a little too casual for me to rank it any higher. 45. Growth Dorothy. I know Growth Dorothy is more popular than I give it credit for, but my critique from the Lowly Gothic ranking still stands. I don't like the heavy use of segmentation in this silhouette, especially with how much visual noise you already get from the stripes and ruffles. The simple color palette does help keep everything relatively balanced, but it's busier than I'd like it to be. 44. Rose Glass Princess. Rose Glass Princess has a really unique concept in the stained glass and mosaic motifs, but I can't overlook how plain the pink fabric is in this design. It's supposed to be shimmery like it's covered in tiny sequins, but it ends up looking flat in most shots, and the appliques look more like stickers, especially on the top. They could have at least had the scrolling designs cover more of the pieces to integrate them better. 43. Thumbalina Bouquet. My main critique for Thumbalina Bouquet is how the 3D tulips are executed on the skirt. It's a great concept, I do love this coord, but they really dropped the ball by making the tulips on the skirt look more like onions. It's really distracting to me. 42. Pierro Carnival. I also only have a small nitpick for Pierro Carnival. I don't like the shape of the fluffy underskirt. It's way too small and round to look elegant and ends up looking more like a diaper to me. It's such a waste since I love the rest of the design. 41. Dolly Leopard. Dolly Leopard is technically fine, I just would have liked to see more of the leopard print used since it's supposed to be the focal point of the design. I also would have reduced the amount of glitter since having so much of it reduces the amount of texture variation they could have had here. The gold belt with colorful square inlays is also not fitting in very well to me. 40. Girly Violin. Girly Violin is mostly down here because of the brown violin shaped panel in the top. It looks awkward to me, especially with nothing to balance its visual weight in the skirt. I also don't like the heavy use of the red flower shaped ribbons in the front of the coord. They make a diamond shape that flattens the overall visual impact since it's so two-dimensional. 39. Star Festival. I love Star Festival's color palette and the dramatic scale of the silhouette, especially the wings, but there is way too much detail in all these pieces, and because of that, it feels super heavy. The clustered ribbons, ruffles, and appliques do create a strong visual flow in the design, but they don't need so many layers to achieve that effect. It could have been significantly edited down and looked much more elegant. 38. Bright World. It's a little shocking that I have Bright World above Star Festival, but I think that's because I do think it's a cleanly edited design, all things considered. I'm not a fan of tie-dye, especially neon tie-dye, but I can appreciate the asymmetry and creative use of rhinestones here. It's definitely not my favorite coord, but I think it executes most of its ideas successfully. 37. Mysterious Virgo. I honestly don't remember where I ranked Mysterious Virgo in the Love Queen / Moonrise ranking, but my opinion is very split on it. I think the top and skirt on their own are pretty good. The cut and draping of the pieces work for me. The boots and wings are a big missed opportunity though. I think they look clunky and overly simplified because of the gemstone details they chose. That goes for the top and skirt too. The graphic print moons and circular gems are too cartoony to fit the elegance of the rest of the design. 36. Resort Cancer. Resort Cancer is a victim of my bias against patchwork patterns. I know objectively that this is a cute design. The tied jacket around the waist is a fun detail, and the color palette looks great. I don't personally find the mixed patterns to be very appealing, so I don't enjoy the dramatic scale of the skirt here, but I wouldn't blame anyone for liking this coord. 35. Musical Scorpio. Musical Scorpio is another objectively good coord. The edgier style isn't my taste, but the primary color palette and consistent use of dark leather accents are the strongest parts of this design. The colorful musical notes and gold trim help brighten it up into a more youthful tone, which works perfectly fine. There's even some nice asymmetrical elements in the boots and skirt. 34. King Leo. I know it's crazy to put King Leo this high up, but I do like it a lot better out of context. The lion theme is still very lacking, and it is still a plain gold dress for the most part, but the draping at the top and the colorful wings really appeal to me. I think the quality of those details is outweighing the quantity of other design quirks. I could easily change my mind on that though. 33. Oriental Libra. Oriental Libra works, yes, but we've already talked about those 2D printed skirts and how I'd much rather see 3D elements. Everything here is cohesive and on theme, and the wings are really interesting. It's just a bit basic as far as execution goes. They could have pushed the floral concept even farther. 32. Bubbles Mermaid. Despite being my favorite Vivid Kiss coord, Bubbles Mermaid doesn't really impress me outside of its brand. Don't get me wrong, I still adore the fish scale mermaid concept, but the basic silhouette and lack of any other creative ideas makes this an underwhelming design. Still cute, still fun, just not very complex. 31. Lollipop Taurus. I believe Lollipop Taurus was also number 1 for the Happy Rainbow ranking, and again I still think it's a cute coord. You already know my thoughts about a food theme, but the textures are still beautiful despite my biases. I might have incorporated the chocolate color on the wings a little differently, but I do like most of this design. 30. Shine Witch. I had Shine Witch in my top 10 the first time I did this ranking, and I kept dropping lower and lower until it got here. Honestly, it could probably go even lower, but I like the color palette enough to keep it here for now. It's cut a little weird, like you expect the purple fabric to be heavier and more structured because of the top and boots, but then it has a loose billowy shape in the skirt. Very weird. 29. Crystal Aquarius. Major upset here. What happened, Crystal Aquarius? I realized how much less I liked this one while I was doing the featuring girl deep dive. I'm a known enemy of the random crystal textures in Aikatsu. It's not that they're bad conceptually, I just think they make an outfit look kind of cheap when you have these crystal gradient prints. It's the difference between actually making crystal pieces, like in the wings, versus the uncanny effect of sharp crystal texture on a smooth fabric piece like the bodice and skirt. I do still enjoy this design, but outside of featuring girl as a brand, I just don't like this motif. 28. Fluffy Monster. Fluffy Monster is fun and a novel piece of decor representation. I'm always up for fluffy textures too. Even though this isn't my personal style, the cartooniness of this design is really unique. There are a lot of creative ideas packed in here, and I would have liked to see the concept expanded on more in the show. 27. Street Art. Street art is full of fun shapes and colors, and I'm really glad they condensed it down into a crop top and skirt. There's so much going on within the lines of the silhouette that it needs all the breathing room it can get. The visual rhythm of the ruffles in each piece is pretty satisfying, and in this case those brown leather and wood accents are actually effective at adding structure. It reminds me a lot of summer camp arts and crafts. 26. White Veil Sky. White Veil Sky is a beautiful dress. I'm just not quite satisfied with how the roses on the bust were executed, and they could have used more asymmetry in the wrist and ankle bows. I do really like that the flower petals were added on the bodice and skirt, and the color palette is lovely. I'd just like to see it elevated slightly with some extra creativity. 25. Candy House. I think Candy House is a good example of that slight creative boost I'm looking for. The cottage door in the skirt is really quirky but still cute. I like all the candy and biscuit motifs and really appreciate the texture variation they contribute. The 2D patterns are appropriate here for adding just a little more visual interest, and there are still plenty of 3D elements to raise the overall level of complexity. My main critique would be that its silhouette is pretty basic. 24. Angel Alice. I have criticized Angel Alice for its droopiness and its misuse of its 3D elements, but it still ended up in the top half of this ranking. I'd like to point out that the darker ribbons on the bodice and skirt are a much better way to do a triangular arrangement of elements. By making the bodice ribbons smaller, it breaks up the repetition and avoids the stiffness that coords like Girly Violin suffer from. The pastel pink and purple are also a very pleasing combination, and I do love the wing motif in the wrist cuffs and shoes. 23. Senorita Sharada. The dramatic leg warmers on Senorita Sharada make it stand out a lot. The large flared skirt offers a good balance to them, and I think the oversized appliques on the top were a good choice. It does run the risk of looking a little silly, but the elegance added by all of the gold jewelry and the intentional gradient in the halter draping help pull it all together for me. 22. Multicolor. I'm a big fan of multicolor, even if the splotchiness of the tights does feel a bit odd. I love the pairing of the ruched bodice with dramatic detached sleeves, and the geometric stripes in the skirt are such a subtle but interesting pattern. The oversized butterfly accents are great too. There are a lot of awesome details to appreciate here. 21. Silky Love Devil. My appreciation for Silky Love Devil comes down to my interest in the balloon style skirt and its interesting mesh texture and its beautiful contrast with the pink satin base material. I'm also very intrigued by the fluffy rhinestone dyed accessories and the bracelets and shoes. The asymmetrical fishnet arm warmer is a necessary boost to the overall complexity, and I like that the simplicity of the top and bottom give the strappy leg jewelry enough room to shine. 20. Peter Adventure. Peter Adventure does a great job of integrating a lot of creative ideas into a cohesive design. The arts and crafts theme is still present here, and I like small details like the way the striped tights match the hues of the striped belt. I've held this cord back just a little because I don't enjoy denim clothing very much, but everything in this design is looking really strong. 19. Blue Empress. For Blue Empress, my biggest critique is definitely the randomly placed zippers on the back of the skirt. There's already a lot of successful grunge elements in the front of the design, so why isolate those zippers to the back and haphazard slashes? They could have at least wrapped around to the front more or established a more coherent visual rhythm. They really detract from what is otherwise a very unique punk-inspired coord. 18. Tyrolean Aries. I've commented on how well researched I think the pastoral themes in Tyrolean Aries are, and it's clear that this dress was designed with a lot of genuine interest in the Alpine region. Personally, I love the fluffy wings and boot trim, but details like apron embroidery and flower baskets are also really pretty. I would have liked to see this one in a more advanced graphics system. 17. Swing Gemini. I've talked about Swing Gemini a few times now, both in my swing rock and unit dress rankings, so I'll just say that I'm still very charmed by the friendly shapes and thoughtful use of asymmetry in its design. I think it strikes a great balance between the swing rock and Angel Sugar design aesthetics. 16. Angel Gemini. Angel Gemini is much of the same, I just prefer the slightly cuter style of this one. My favorite details are still the cartoony wings and the balanced implementation of graphic elements. 15. Goth Magic. I give Goth Magic a lot of credit for the novelty of its super dramatic silhouette, which feels a lot more intentional than most of the other oversized skirts in the franchise to me. I like the clear batwing motif and the references to real-life Gothic Lolita fashion brands. There are a lot of iconic shapes to savor here. 14. Aurora Kiss. Aurora Kiss feels so nostalgic that you could put it at the top of your list and I wouldn't bat an eye. It's classic Aikatsu Lolita fashion with ballet inspiration, a delicate pink and white palette, and Aurora gradient wings. It feels simple while still packing in a ton of well-edited detail, and I think it deserves its massive popularity. 13. Blooming. Much more controversial is Blooming. It's definitely not a fan favorite, and you could call me a hypocrite for tolerating the dark brown shoes. But I'm a sucker for classic fairy costumes, and Blooming gives me everything I want in a fairy-themed design. I love the pastel palette, flower-inspired shapes, and gold accents. Sure, I'd love to see the shoes lightened up, and the daisies on the skirt distributed better throughout the design, but I'm honestly happy with this coord. 12. Tropical Basket. Tropical Basket is really creative. Its drop waist gives it a unique silhouette, and the consistent use of 3D fruit appliques unites each piece with a ton of visual interest between them. The striped pattern of the top and skirt encourages visual flow between them, and I really love the rounded heels of the shoes. The asymmetrical bodice straps and arm jewelry are very nice to see too. 11. Sleeping Aurora. Sleeping Aurora's biggest strength is probably its high contrast palette. The main pink color looks great against the darker purple accents, and the red added in is a good mid-tone between them. I definitely noticed the crown and scroll graphics in the skirt the most, followed by the purple ribbon around the waist, then all the rose accents. The off-shoulder neckline is also great for adding movement and ties in well with the gloves and skirt trim. 10. Rose Bonbon. Rose Bonbon makes me happy every time I see it. I'm so glad we get a top with such a dramatic shape for once. All of those oversized ruffles fit in seamlessly with the oversized roses and butterflies throughout this design. The boldness of the thigh-length boots adds a lot of maturity and grounds the other pieces in a much more elegant tone. It's great to see a concept push this far and still end up looking cohesive. 9. Milky Way Cosmic. This is definitely a very close ranking, but Milky Way Cosmic gets a lot of points for me for its sleekness and unique skirt cut. It also helps that navy blue is one of my favorite colors, and I love how the space theme has been translated into a flowing galaxy-inspired design. There's still plenty of structure here, and I think all of the choices made read as very intentional. A lot of care has been taken in making sure all of the shapes and lines are reading correctly. 8. Oet Swan. For Oet Swan, the bodice is the main point of impact for me. The gradients of the skirt and mix of oversized emblems with delicate rhinestones are great details too, but the wings of the bust paired with the V-shaped panel and red ribbon sash are a really iconic combination. It pushes beyond its ballerina inspiration to establish a memorable design, and I think it's super successful. The primary color palette is a big force behind its elegance, and the novelty of the feather details is really interesting too. 7. Haguruma Princess. Hagoromo Princess has so many great ideas and shows how much Aikatsu could have done with more traditional themes in its coords. It combines silhouette elements I like from other designs, notably the flared leg warmers and detached sleeves, and adds an interesting tapered shape to the back of the skirt. The color palette is gorgeous with tons of interesting traditional patterns and accents. I'd love to hear this one analyzed by someone who knows more about all the cultural references. 6. Snow Princess. Snow Princess is my favorite lily gothic coord, but outside the context of the brand, I've lowered its rank just a bit. I still adore the tapestry theme and all of the gorgeous tulle and embroidery accents, but it does have a heaviness to it that doesn't always appeal to me as much. Still, this is a richly detailed coord with a lot of great structure and a cleanly edited silhouette. There are plenty of strong shapes keeping the overall visual flow really satisfying. 5. Kaleido Mirror. I was surprised to see Kaleido Mirror rise this high up in the ranking, but I gained a ton of appreciation for it during my featuring girl deep dive. It has a lighter, airier tone thanks to the gradients between the skirt and the tights. The tapered cut of the top is also really interesting, as are the gradient gloves. All of those gradients are a nice balance to the dense geometric prints too. And to top it all off, there's a beautiful level of contrast between sharp and soft shapes within each piece. Beautiful. 4. Lilac Fairy. I'm not ashamed to admit that I have an immense sentimental attachment to Lilac Fairy. It's not the most dramatic coord, but every little detail is utterly charming to me. The delicate flower chains, embroidery, lacing, and scalloped hemlines are all adorable. I love the shapes of the mini cape, hat, and chunky boots. The pink and purple palette looks amazing too. I couldn't ask for a sweeter design. 3. Royal Moon. Royal Moon is here to deliver all the drama that Lilac Fairy was missing. I think of it as the predecessor to the Rococo inspiration and ball gown silhouettes of Aikatsu stars. The details that stand out the most to me are the cutouts in the bodice and the cord-wrapped fur trim in the skirt. The curtain-like layers in the skirt are also really well done in my opinion, since they aren't that dense visually. All the more intricate jewels and beads have plenty of room to stand out. 2. Mermaid Pisces. Mermaid Pisces was super close to being my number 1. I absolutely love the rainbow mermaid concept. The texture variation is the highlight for me, going from translucent fin-like material to subtle fish scale prints, all the way to solid seashell embellishments. The tapered high-low dress fits nicely with the tapered wings and helps emphasize the image of a fish's fins and tail. It's a really strong execution of a bundle of my favorite design concepts. 1. Nightmare Capricorn. This might be a surprise, but I genuinely think Nightmare Capricorn is the most memorable dress in the anime. I think a lot of people remember this coord when they think back to their favorite performances, and I'm the same. It has such strong, iconic elements thanks to the large-scale diamond print in the skirt and the blue-orange color contrast. There's a full value spectrum from white to very dark navy as well, which increases its visual impact. The cut is a classic gothic Alluda silhouette with extra drama from column-inspired wings and a tiny crown. What more could you ask for? Let me know your favorite premium wear dresses in the comments below, and look out for my overall brand ranking next week. Bye bye!
You are number 1.